Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another post-race analysis video on the channel today. We're going to be covering all things that happened in the Wise Power 400 at the Auto Club Speedway for the NASCAR Cup Series this weekend. I was at the race attending the Cup Series race in person once again this weekend, so I'll get to show you a little bit of footage of that throughout the race analysis video, and of course we'll talk chronological order as what went down through stage 1, stage 2, and then ultimately leading to the finish of the race in stage 3, the fallout of the race with both the predictions I had from Sunday morning before the race had come out, as well as leaving the race with how the predictions are the rest of the year. And we'll take a look at how the fantasy went this weekend in the Fantasy League on the channel. Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. Here we go. First things first, of course, it was a beautiful Sunday afternoon for racing. Temperatures in the mid-70s. Not as windy at the start of the race as what it was in practice and qualifying, so I didn't think there might have been too much of an issue specifically off of turn 4 like there was in practice and qualifying leading into the race itself on Sunday afternoon, but the conditions were the same. Very bumpy surface, and boy, did we see a plethora of cautions throughout the course of this one. The race would start, the green flag would be in the air, and it would be our Daytona 500 winner Austin Cendrick leading the field to the green flag to start the race. And as they roared off into turn 1, 3, and 4 wide, as we saw all day long throughout the restarts of this race, the field would get a little spaced out, but honestly, considering it was Auto Club, and the fact that we had so many cautions throughout the course of the day, it seemed like whenever they would start to space out, we'd get a caution to compact the field back together again. We would in fact see our first caution of the race about 16 laps in when two-time Cup Series champion Kyle Busch went for a spin off the exit of turn 2, losing control of his car, flat spotting the tires and falling multiple laps down. He also would later have some issues, I believe, with the engine. I know in qualifying or after qualifying he was talking about maybe having a transaxle issue because, again, I was at the race in person. It was hard to dictate exactly what was going on with the 18 car, but he was on pit road pretty much all day long and would have to fight from behind pretty much from the very beginning of the race. We would also see race leader at the time, Chase Elliot, get into the wall during the first stage of the race pretty much all by himself, just losing control of the race car with the next-gen car and with this very tough track in general, let alone with a new race car, led for a lot of difficulties, and two champions already having issues in the very beginning of this race. All day long, we would end up seeing some major battles for the lead with drivers that we aren't typically used to seeing up there. Guys like Tyler Reddick led a lot early on. Eric Jones qualified on the front row and also had a strong car, ran top 3 most of the day. By the end of the race, we would see drivers like Chase Briscoe, Daniel Suarez leading laps in the late going. William Byron, who only has a few career Cup Series wins, though also racing for HMS, was also inside the top 5 for most of the day till his late troubles. So with this being an early season race, we've seen this especially in years past. In fact, last season, we had seen this happen throughout the first 3 to 4 races of the year before the veterans of the sport or the typical front runners would start to take forward. And I think you're going to be seeing this again this year. I know it's the next-gen car, but it doesn't seem to be that much different compared to years past as far as seeing the variety of drivers at the front of the field at the beginning of the season. And as far as the Stage 1 results go, it was our stage winner in Stage 1, Tyler Reddick, getting the job done, getting his first playoff point of the season. With Tyler Reddick winning Stage 1, it was hard fought to the very end of the opening stage for the guy who finished in second, which was Eric Jones. Again, had a great and outstanding performance all day yesterday, scoring the stage points as well to go along with it like he did in Stage 1. William Byron, I mentioned, would lead a little bit throughout the course of the race, led some in Stage 1. He finished 3rd in the opening stage. And Chase Briscoe, who would pretty much run up towards the front all day as well, would end up finishing 4th. Kyle Larson, who we'd see more of later in the race, still had a quiet but solid start to the race, finishing 5th at the end of Stage 1. Alex Bowman 6th, Joey Logano 7th, Ryan Blaney 8th, Austin Cendrick, who started on the pole, fell back to 9th, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. popping into the top 10, also ran top 3 for a very brief moment at least in Stage 1 as well. Into stage 2, we would end up seeing more of the same. Tyler Reddick kind of going on to his dominating ways in the early going. We would see the same amount of cautions for incident as what we saw in stage 1. 3 in the first 2 stages. If you include the stage breaks, we had 8 cautions of the 12 in the first 130 laps. It would come down to a little bit down to the wire again with some late restarts in the stage, but Tyler Reddick eventually holding on to win stage number 2, just like he did in stage number 1. Not only it was Tyler Reddick who went on to win stage number 2 as well, but just like in stage 1, also the guy who finished second in stage 1 also finished second in stage 2. That was Erik Jones, continuing his outstanding performance. Definitely the best run we've seen out of Erik Jones in that 43 car since going there last season. In third place, we would see maybe a little bit more familiar faces. Some of the Penske drivers who typically run well here at Auto Club, like Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney would finish 3rd and 4th. Kyle Larson would end up finishing the top 5 out once again. And then in the back half of the field in stage 2, or the back half of the top 10, Cole Custer would start to charge forward. He ended up 6th at the end of the stage. Austin Cendrick was running silently in the top 10 most of the day. He ended up finishing 7th. Eric Almirola would start to jump forward. He was one of the sleeper picks I had in the prediction. He had a pretty good second half of the race, finally started to charge forward, finished 8th in the stage. William Byron 9th, and Denny Hamlin would round out the top 10. A pretty quiet day for Hamlin. He started to get things going in the right direction late until what we're about to get into here in a little bit. Although there was drama throughout the course of the race, it was stage 3 where that drama would first start to pick in. The first main priority of the drama was race leader Tyler Reddick. Much like how Chase Elliott had gotten into the wall earlier on his own, well, really this wasn't a whole lot of Tyler Reddick's own doing. He had a flat left rear tire all of a sudden go down on him while leading this race. I don't know if he got into the wall or not. It was hard for me to tell from the grandstands, but then William Byron, with really nowhere to go on the outside, tried to steer clear out of the way off the exit to turn 2, could not do it, slammed right into the side of him, bringing out our first caution of the final stage. Unfortunately, it knocked Tyler Reddick out of a shot to win. He was able to stay in the race, but was multiple laps down. William Byron did DNF out for that, which was very terrible considering both drivers were in the top 5 all day long. For Tyler Reddick's sake, he led 90 laps, won the first 2 stages, and just like in the Daytona 500, therefore each of the first 2 races this season, we saw a driver win the first 2 stages of the race and was unable to even get a top 10 finish at the end of the day. Just a few laps into the next restart following that, we would end up seeing our second caution of the final stage of the race, where we had our really biggest accident, I guess, of the race taking place off the exit of turn number 2, involving drivers like Brad Keselowski, who had spun once earlier in the race at the end of stage 2 off of turn 4, getting spun again, this time with contact from the 23 of Bubba Wallace as they were 3 wide off the exit of turn 2. It was hard to tell whether Keselowski had come down or Wallace had moved up, maybe a little bit of both. Racing deal, and when you're 3 wide at any racetrack, even one that is as wide as Auto Club, it is still very, very treacherous, very, very difficult, especially with the bumps and the lack of grip on this racetrack. And again, with the next-gen cars that these drivers are very unfamiliar with. Not only Bubba Wallace was involved with heavy damage to the right front of his car, Keselowski didn't have a lot of damage to his car. He was able to still finish the race, but took him out of a top 10. He was one of my sleeper picks, was running in the top 10 until his first spin, then was slowly cutting back through the field before the second one. For drivers like Harrison Burton in the 21 car this year, unfortunately, he did not fare well. He got the most damage out of this accident, unfortunately for him, and that is 2 races to start off the season for Harrison Burton, where he was running very good in the Daytona 500, and then decent. He was running pretty much 15th most of the day, but unfortunately gets taken out in this and does not get a good finish for the second straight race to start the season for him. Austin Cendrick, the pole sitter, was also involved in this accident, but he, much like Keselowski, just kind of went for a little bit of a spin or a slide. Very minimal damage to that 2 car. He pretty much had most of the speed and most of the car intact to continue his pursuit and trying to get a good finish in this race. Leading now to one of the later restarts in the race in the final 30 laps. A dive bomb move up the middle, 3 wide for Kyle Larson, nearly 4 wide, trying to take the lead away from teammate Chase Elliot after a driver on the outside of the front lane. Chase Briscoe had stayed out of the pits on older tires to try and regain track position. We knew how much the tires had mattered in this race. I kind of figured that that wasn't going to work, and Larson did not want to get stacked up behind him and had no choice but to go up the gut 3 wide to try and make a move for the lead. Into turn 3, it was Joey Logano who would end up eventually trying to take advantage of it, while the 48 of Alex Bowman ended up in the wall. Further back, it was side-by-side action for the lead from Larson and Logano, with Elliot trying to go 3 wide to the outside before getting pinched into the wall by his teammate Kyle Larson. Eventually, after the race, the spotter of the 5 team had gone on and stated that it was his fault that he did not call the 9 car to the outside. Larson really only had his mirror to make the judgment, and it was a late judgment at that, knocking him into the wall, and eventually Elliot would go on to have a spin in the closing laps of the race, setting up one more restart with about 4 laps to go. And after all the late race restarts, it would come down to just one more. As mentioned, with 4 laps to go, Kyle Larson and Daniel Suarez would be on the front row. Larson would get a great push from behind from Joey Logano, launching the 5 car with a nose ahead of the car on the inside, Daniel Suarez. But it was down the back straightaway where Joey Logano again would try to push the 5, get a bit tight, and have to back out of the throttle, leaving the battle with Daniel Suarez on the bottom, side drafting his way to the 5 of Kyle Larson. Logano, out of desperation, makes it 3 wide to the inside into turn 3, nearly wrecking each of the race car drivers as they held onto it off the exit of the corner. Kyle Larson would seem to pull away with 3 laps to go at the line, but a major push on the front stretch from the 99 of to the 99 of Daniel Suarez from the 43 of Erik Jones would launch Daniel Suarez to the lead for the first time all race long with just a couple laps to go, slide jobbing his way across the nose of the 5 of Larson, nearly pinching him into the outside wall, and Daniel Suarez was then leading the race. But another late charge, as the draft seemed to be of importance with these long straightaways at Auto Club, presumably and especially on this final restart. Larson would go to the outside in 3 and 4, while Daniel Suarez would give him that outside lane by running the bottom. Lack of momentum off the exit of the corner for Suarez would give Larson the run he needed to cross him over at the start-finish line, and then he would then pull a major block on Suarez into the tri-oval with 2 laps to go to take the lead for good. Nobody was able to get back around Kyle Larson. A late surge by Austin Dillon for those final couple laps was not able to make the pass on Larson for the lead, but Dillon was able to at least get around and pull away from Daniel Suarez, and Kyle Larson would go on to win his first race of the 2022 NASCAR season. We'll now take a look at our finishing results to the Wise Power 400 at the Auto Club Speedway. Again, Kyle Larson with the win, just leading 28 laps in this race today, which is still a decent amount. I guess it was the second most amount of laps led, but considering Kyle Larson's 2021 season, this was not a race that looked like he was going to be in contention for the win late, but with all the cautions and with a couple of the favorites like William Byron and Tyler Reddick getting taken out ahead of him, Chase Elliott having his problems early and then getting blocked into the wall by Kyle Larson, would open the door for Larson to be able to win this race, despite the fact that he probably had about the 4th or 5th quickest car in the field. But nonetheless, a win at his home track to kickstart the 2022 NASCAR season is definitely maybe a sign that Kyle Larson could go on as a repeat champion. It could be the first driver to win back-to-back titles in the 16-man playoff format, which has been around since 2014. Austin Dillon didn't lead a lap all day, but he would end up finishing in 2nd place. Had a great run most of the day. Ran top 10 all throughout the final stage. More on him in a little bit. Erik Jones finishes 3rd, ran top 3 all day, led 18 laps, finished 2nd in both stages. A phenomenal points day for Erik Jones. He scored more points in this race than any other driver in the field. Erik Jones sitting pretty. He's going to need days like this if he's going to want to make his way into the playoffs at season's end. Daniel Suarez, just like Erik Jones, ran well most of the day. Only his day was more towards the back half of the top 10, but was able to surge up to 4th on that last restart, getting the track position he needed when he restarted on the front row. Was unable to hold on on for the win. He didn't actually lead a lap in this race like I thought he did now that I'm looking at Racing Reference after the fact, because he did not cross the start-finish line with the lead, but nonetheless, he did put on a very, very late charge. Who would have known if he would have went to the outside in turns 3 and 4, would he have been able to hold off Larson? He still would have had 2 more laps to be able to hold off the 5 car, who I thought was faster than him anyway. Throughout the course of the day, it would have been tough. Eric Jones was also faster throughout the course of the day. I think Logano was faster, and he still finished ahead of him. So, coulda, woulda, shoulda. I don't think Suarez would have been able to hold on for the entire 2.5 laps, but who knows? Maybe it would have been an even more of a spectacular finish than what it already was. Joey Logano would end up rounding out the top 5. He led 14 laps, finishing in 5th, scored stage points at both stages. Eric Almirola, more on him again in a little bit as well, as he ended up finishing in the 6th place position. Kevin Harvick would end up finishing 7th, his Stewart-Haas teammate right behind him. Harvick had an abysmal day, but was able to get a couple good late race restarts. His pit crew was very good. It seemed like he was gaining spots almost every time on pit road throughout the course of the day. So definitely a big rebound for that team after really struggling. He wrecked on the opening lap of practice, so he literally had no practice and was in a backup car already behind the 8 ball from the start, as well as having to start at the rear of the field. And he was able to charge forward, much like with Kurt Busch, who also had to start towards the rear of the field. In fact, started this race over half a lap down after having to take a penalty on pit road under green flag conditions on the opening laps of the race after failing pre-race inspection 3 times. He would end up rebounding for a top 10 finish. Also, like Harvick, pretty much ran outside the top 20 all day. Daniel Hamrick would come back from multiple laps down to finish in the 9th place position. I think at one point he was at least 3 laps down, maybe even more than that. But was able to rebound. He was having some mechanical issues at some point throughout the course of the race. Again, not sure exactly what it was, but a great effort by that Colleague Racing 16 team. I will say Colleague Racing has shown speed early this season in the Cup Series. They have shown some mechanical issues at the same time as well. If they could just work that out, work out maybe those bugs, if you will, with the next-gen car, I think that those are going to be cars that will be competing for more wins throughout the course of the season. But anyway, top 10 finish for the former Rookie of the Year. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., another former Rookie of the Year, would end up rounding out the top 10 in the 10th place, finishing position for Stenhouse. He ran up in the top 3 in stage 1, kind of faltered back to 7th and 10th pretty much the rest of the race after that, but he did score stage points in the back half of the field earlier in the race, as well as finishing in the top 10 at the end of the day. So good news for any Stenhouse fans out there. He was fun to watch on those restarts, especially early on. Now we get to take a look at how my predictions ended up going through at the Auto Club Speedway. I will say they were way better than what it was at Daytona. I can't say the same for my fantasy team. Sometimes I need to listen to my own advice. I listen to my own advice with the must-haves, with the sleeper picks. Sometimes I don't always go with all my sleeper picks. And I should probably start doing that, because in today's race it would have helped. I think my fantasy team would have definitely benefited from it. To start off, though, with the must-haves, I had Kyle Busch and Joey Logano. Unfortunately for Kyle Busch, just like I mentioned, even in the predictions race, that he was either going to compete for the win or he was going to get taken out of it in the first 20 laps. That's exactly what happened. He got taken out of it in the first 20 laps of the race. Yes, it was because of a spin, but he was also having mechanical issues with that spin. I'm not sure if the spin had triggered the mechanical issues to come back or not. But again, he was having a transaxle issue in practice and in qualifying. They might not have gotten that fixed. Whatever the case was, there were some problems under the interior of the race car. And that ended up pretty much ending his chances to win the race. He was 5 laps down at one point, not only finished on the lead lap, but ended up finishing in the 14th place position. It still wasn't a top 10 at bare minimum, so with that being said, and the fact he got no stage points today, I have to say I was wrong on Kyle Busch. I was right with Joey Logano, though. He ended up finishing in the 5th place position. He basically ran 3rd to 6th most of the day. He led laps throughout the course of it here and there on the restarts. He was another driver that was extremely fun to watch on the restarts, making it very interesting, especially late, taking it 3 wide on multiple occasions, and was involved obviously on the inside of what ended up happening with the contact with Larson and Elliot into the wall as well. That very final restart, it looked like he was out of it after the first half a lap. Somehow, I have never seen a driver drive it that deep on such a slick track into the corner like he did in turn 3 with 4 laps to go to make it 3 wide and actually get it to stick to the point that, no, he didn't stay underneath them. He was never going to from that far back and how far he drove it in without wrecking the car. But the fact that he was able to actually drive it in, not lose much time from it, probably actually picked up some time from that move and make it, I guess, work in a certain aspect. He did lose a couple more spots, but that was mainly because of the draft and the momentum to his outside with drivers like Austin Dillon and Eric Jones kind of hopping Logano out of line, but nevertheless, Logano put on a heck of an effort. He definitely competed for the win like I said he would, and I was right with that prediction. Where I was also right with my predictions were my sleeper picks. Aric Almirola, Austin Dillon, both ran in the top 10 most of the day. Almirola ran in the top 10 more often than Austin Dillon did, but when Dillon got that car rolling in the right direction of the final stage, he was bad fast. I mean, he was top 5 on speed in the final stage of the race. Ended up finishing second, had an incredible restart there at the end. In fact, challenged Larson to the inside on one occasion for the lead, but could not get around him. Austin Dillon has proved very good at Auto Club in Michigan for whatever reason. He seems to have fast cars there. He had it there once again today. That would make for 4 straight finishes at Auto Club now that were 12th or better, including the last 3 races at Auto Club being top 10 finishes. So Austin Dillon may be someone to look out for at Michigan later this year, a track where he led at last season, finished well in the stages. Unfortunately, got wrecked out at the end of stage 2. Might have had a shot to win that day. I think he's someone to look out for at Michigan later this year, especially if he shows speed. And RCR shows speed like they did not only last season, but this year. They are coming out of the gate strong. Reddick led a lot of laps. I know Dillon didn't lead any laps, but he finished second. So right with him. And then Almirola, yeah, top 10. He finished 6th again. He ran pretty much top 10 the entire final 100 laps of the race. Scored stage points at the end of stage 2. Right with both of those predictions. The only prediction I was wrong on with the sleepers, I tried to triple up on the sleeper picks, having 3 of them, which is harder. The more you predict, the more of a chance you're going to be wrong. In this case, I got the majority of them right. The only one I got wrong, Brad Keselowski. And he was in the top 10 in the first half of the race. He was running 7th through 10th the entire first 100 laps. Once he spun that first time and lost that track position, it was downhill from there. He would come back to, I think, get back inside the top 10. He was like 9th or 10th when he spun the second time, and that was contact with Bubba Wallace. Again, maybe a little bit of his fault and a little bit of Bubba's fault. So, Keselowski, very aggressive out of the gate with Roush Fenway. Very interesting that he is as aggressive out of the gate, considering he is the owner of the car. He is paying for the damages that are done to the race car, or at least part of the damages done to the race car. So, very interesting to see him actually, being as aggressive as he is early in the season, but he knows how important these points are. He knows he's going to be battling for a playoff spot at the end of the year, knowing the equipment he's in. He's trying to go for it early on in the year. A 9th place finish last week at Daytona. He salvaged at least a decent day out of it despite being around a couple big accidents. And this weekend he was involved in the biggest accident. I know it wasn't really heavy in the sense of damage-wise, but he did finish 27th, 2 laps down because of it. Obviously took him out of a shot to win. So unfortunately, I was wrong with that prediction. And then with the drivers on the don't have list, the 2 drivers that I said that you guys should absolutely not have in your fantasy lineups on Sunday, William Byron and Kurt Busch. Byron ran top pretty much 4 or 5 all day until his late accident. But because he was involved in the accident, DNF'd and ended up finishing, let me look here. I know he finished outside the top 30. DNF'd to finish 34th. I guess I was right with my prediction. Hey, sometimes you get lucky like that. I was unlucky with Kyle Busch. Yes, he could have had a fast car, but because of what happened, my prediction was wrong. In this case, just like with William Byron, it was looking like he was going to go on and probably compete for the win, but because he was taken out in an accident, he didn't get a top 10. He has not finished better than 15th in now 4 Auto Club starts. So right with my prediction with Byron finishing outside the top 10 today. And I was wrong with Kurt Busch. It kind of roles reversed where he was terrible all day like I predicted, but he would end up still getting the top 10 at the end, surviving the carnage and finishing 8th. So definitely better in my predictions this weekend than what it was at Daytona. Not perfect, but better. I probably got about 2/3 of them right. And that's improvement. Now we'll see if we can keep improving to Las Vegas next week. Before we wrap up this video, let's check out how the fantasy team did, and most importantly, those fantasy standings. So again, quickly, you can join the Fantasy League by going onto the NASCAR mobile app or website, going to the Fantasy portion of the website. Sign up with your email and search for KRC League, KRC, and all caps, capital L on League. And you could join. Chance to win a couple tickets to any NASCAR race of your choosing in 2023 if you win either the regular season or the playoff championship for the fantasy league itself. As far as the fantasy team this week, I did slightly better than what I did at Daytona, but not really. I literally only scored one more point than what I did in the Daytona 500. I was at the track this weekend. Again, if you go to the races, you actually don't have much internet access. So if you're trying to upload the fantasy from your phone, you're likely not going to be able to get it to work on the NASCAR app or website online, unfortunately. And that ended up costing me again this week like it did at Daytona. I had Ryan Blaney in my garage this week where I could have put him in for, say, Brad Keselowski, who spun towards the end of stage 2, Kyle Busch, who was a couple laps down there, Denny Hamlin, who had damage and at one point was a lap down. So I definitely would have put Blaney in for any one of those 3 drivers. Unfortunately, I couldn't, kind of like with the Daytona 500 where I had Austin Cendrick in my garage and he went on to win the race after Harrison Burton flipped at the end of stage 1. I would have definitely flip-flopped those 2. It's costing me points early in the season. I think that's why you'll see where I'm at in the standings here in a bit. But Blaney ran top 10 all day. His pit crew cost him mightily, though, unfortunately, and he ended up finishing, I believe, in the 18th position. It was crazy. I don't know if TV does it justice, but Ryan Blaney's pit crew was terrible last season. But out of the gates this year with the next-gen car and the single lug nut wheel, they are even worse this year. I kid you not, and this is not an exaggeration, he lost over 30 spots on pit road. On 2 occasions, he lost 10-plus spots, and he was losing 3 to 4 spots at every stop. And in a race like Auto Club, where you're going to pit basically anytime there's a caution, and the fact that not only you're going to pit anytime that there is a caution late in the race, but you're also obviously having to make more stops in a race with a lot of cautions. So with every stop, he was literally losing spots. I don't think he gained any spots on pit road all day. I think he only had 1 stop where he actually didn't lose any positions. I think he came out neutral once. He lost at least 1 spot every stop, and usually it was at least 3 or 4 plus every single pit stop, and that was hurting him because he probably had a 4th to 6th place car, and he finished 18th, unfortunately. Needless to say, he was in my garage. Chase Elliott obviously got into the wall, had problems late. Denny Hamlin, I don't think he finished in the top 10 and ran about 10th most of the day. He had issues. I think the only guy that was in my starting 5 that actually finished in the top 10 was Logano, who ended up getting a top 5 finish. But enough talking about my team. Let's see how your guys' did. So here is a look at the fantasy team as of right now. Our former and defending regular season champion Inside Uranus still continues to lead this one with 389 points total. The Plow V3 sitting in second. Dark Crypto sitting in third. EC23 and then 1 rounding out the top 5 right now. I'm sitting all the way back at 13th. I'll get it going eventually here. I'm going to be home the next couple weeks, so I won't have the issue I've had with not being able to adjust my lineup throughout the course of the race. Again, you have until the end of Stage 2 to actually have your lineup completely set, so look out for Vegas and Phoenix. I will not be at the bottom of the board again because I will actually be able to stay on top of my lineup throughout the course of the week, unless they all wreck out, I guess, which is possible, but I'm going to hope that doesn't happen. Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for watching any videos or live streams. The goal is to become a commentator in NASCAR down the road, and you guys have helped me out a ton up to this point. I greatly appreciate it. Every subscribe, every like, every comment in the comment section goes a long, long way in doing that. Also on the road to 10,000 subscribers here in 2022 as well. I think we can get there by the end of the year. Thanks for your support. Comment below your thoughts on the race this weekend, and I will see you again next time.